The film starts inside a peaceful sanctuary called the Rabbit School. Our protagonist Emmy, a young rabbit, checks her reflection on the pond. Another rabbit arrives, informing her that school is about to start, and together, they run off to class. One of the teachers, Mr. Fritz, sees them coming and opens the door for them. Emmy arrives at class just in time for her to ring a gong. The teacher in charge, Madame Hermione, tells the young rabbits a story. Madame Hermione tells a tale about how Easter came to be. She describes how Easter started when animals wanted to give back to the humans caring for them during winter. The story revolves around rabbits that deliver painted eggs. However, according to the tale, foxes once tried to take the jobs of rabbits but ended up ruining Easter instead. That's why the animal kingdom bestowed a golden egg on the rabbits, for them to be recognized as the sole protectors of Easter. As the storyteller ends her tale, the young rabbits line up and sign up for the Easter Bunny exam. Emmy lines up as well but gets rejected for being too short. The frustrated Emmy slams the gong too hard, causing one of the windows on the roof to become loose. Somewhere outside, the three foxes named Ferdinand, Lawrence, and Bruno set up a trap for the rabbits. One of them is using a telescope to see what the rabbits are up to. When the rabbits reveal the golden egg, Ferdinand spots it using his telescope through the loose window. He becomes ecstatic as he observes the egg from afar. The scene cuts to Max, a rabbit living in a small hole in the city. We see him do his morning routine, such as bathing and grooming. After putting on his beanie, he heads out. Max avoids getting seen by people while walking. We see him steal an apple, greet an elderly rabbit, and steal a sticky hand toy. He greets his two rabbit friends and shows him a flyer about a sale. One of his friends says it's too far, but Max insists that they don't have to walk. Max puts a hot dog on a stick and uses it as bait to ride a poodle to their destination. When Max and his friends arrive at their destination, they are greeted by the leader of a rabbit gang called the Shockwave Rabbits. The leader talks to Max and hands him an emblem. Before leaving, the leader tells Max about a location where a gang trial will be held. Max's friends ask him if he wants to join the gang and if he will leave them. Max reassures them that he'll get them in if he becomes a member. Max and his friends enter a clothing store to steal clothes and accessories. After getting the items they need, they prepare to run. However, Max's friends run ahead of him, triggering the alarm and causing Max to almost get caught. He eventually meets up with them at a nearby park. He gets mad at them for leaving him behind since he dropped the jacket he was supposed to steal. His friends tell him that they found the prank funny while showing him their loot. A little rabbit girl comes up to Max's friend and asks them to trade the dress they have. The friends make fun of the little girl instead. They take a look at her book about a rabbit school and tell her that such a place is fictional. Max is the only one who is nice to the little girl. His friends tell him that if he wants to be a shockwave rabbit, then he shouldn't be too nice. Suddenly a remote-controlled airplane flies by. Max jumps on it and gets dragged along for a ride. He tells the rabbit controlling the plane to go higher. While in the air, the plane becomes uncontrollable, causing it to fly far away in random directions. Max ends up flying toward a forest. The scene changes to the inside of a home in the forest. A mother fox named Ruth is sitting in her chair doing embroidery. She becomes increasingly agitated as she hears negative depictions of foxes on television. She slams and kicks the TV when she hears about the Easter Bunny. She talks about her hatred for rabbits for a brief moment before she is distracted by the noise coming from outside. When Ruth steps out, she sees Max and the airplane spiraling out of control. At the same time, her three sons arrive to tell her some good news. Before they can talk, she points out Max in the air and orders her son to capture him. The tree foxes chase the airplane while Max screams in fear. Fortunately, they fail to catch him, and the plane ends up crashing inside, flying over a tall hedge. Meanwhile, inside the rabbit school, Mr. Fritz is teaching the young rabbits how to paint an egg. All of a sudden, they hear a loud noise. Emmy points to the sky, and Mr. Fritz looks up to see Max on an airplane. Max eventually crashes inside the school. When Max opens his eyes, he sees Emmy. All the other young rabbits gather around to check on him. He looks around and is confused by everyone's appearance. He soon finds out where he is and acts surprised because he didn't know that the rabbit school was a real place. Mr. Fritz tries to offer Max carrot juice, but he declines, insisting on drinking something else after he gets home. Max tells the other rabbit to go about their day as he tries to fix the airplane. Emmy remains with Max and asks if she can fly with him before he goes home. Unfortunately, the plane breaks apart while they are talking. Max and Emmy go to the front gate of the school. He tries to open it, but it's securely locked. Emmy explains that the gate is always closed due to the threat of the foxes outside. Max tries to brag that he can outsmart the foxes, but Emmy is not convinced by the male rabbit's display of arrogance. Max tries to ask Mr. Fritz to open the gate and let him out. However, the older rabbit tells him it is not safe. He tells Max that someone can escort him, but only after Easter. Max insists that he needs to go home immediately. Mr. Fritz reiterates that it won't be possible. He suggests that Max make himself at home, and attend some lessons instead. When Mr. Fritz turns around, Max tries to steal the key from him, but he is caught by Madame Hermione. Emmy tells Max that nothing can get past Madame Hermione's watchful eyes. The scene shifts to inside the fox's home. Ferdinand, Lawrence, and Bruno tell their mother about discovering the location of the golden egg. She scolds them and asks them why they didn't discover it sooner. She then tells them to get the golden egg so they can once again become Easter foxes. The next day, Madame Hermione is standing in her garden. She checks one of the carrots and pulls it out. She becomes alarmed when the carrot she picked is shaped like a fox's head. Meanwhile, inside the student dormitory, Max is still asleep. Emmy wakes him up, and he jumps out of surprise. On their way out, Max is startled by the sound of a grandfather clock in the hallway. He looks up and complains about how early it is. He also sees a golden key on the inside of the clock's alarm door. Max tries to climb the clock to get the key, while Emmy tries to make him reconsider his action. Max fails and falls back down to the ground. He takes a mental note of the clock's alarm pattern and follows Emmy outside. Outside, Max sees the rabbit students exercising with Madame Hermione. He refuses to join in and lies down while mumbling about hot showers. Shortly after, the rabbits head to the nearby pond to bathe. Max is weirded out by their behavior, and asks them if they have electricity. One of the rabbits insists that cold water is all they need. Max sprays perfume on himself instead of taking a bath. Emmy asks what the repulsive smell is, and he responds by telling her it's a spring flower. Emmy picks a flower near her and tells Max that the one in her hand is the real spring flower, not his perfume. Back in the garden, Madame Hermione tells Mr. Fritz about the carrot fox head. Mr. Fritz suggests telling all the students about the potential danger coming during Easter. However, Madame Hermione insists on keeping it a secret, for now, to not alarm the students. During the afternoon, Mr. Fritz teaches his class about animal footprints. Max finds the lesson to be extremely boring and makes a joke instead. The students remind him of the rules in class, and he groans after hearing them. Mr. Fritz asks the class a question, and one of the rabbits, named Anton, volunteers to answer. However, Max plays a prank on him. He changes Anton's answer when no one is looking. After the class, Emmy and Max walk around the school. Max tells her that their classes aren't useful. He also tells her that he can outrun any fox that comes his way. She asks him if they play any sports in the city. Before Max can finish answering, he sees the training grounds and is amazed by how complex it looks. It has an obstacle course that the students use to practice for the Easter Bunny examination. Max sees Anton go through the obstacle flawlessly, dodging mechanisms and jumping through platforms. At the end of the obstacle course, Anton performs a move called the Disappearius. He vanishes for a moment and places eggs in 6 different locations around him. Max is dumbfounded by Anton's performance. Emmy tells Max she can place 4 eggs using the Disappearius. Max then asks her if she can teach him, but another rabbit interjects, stating that the technique requires a lot of practice. Suddenly, Anton dashes in front of Max, causing mud to fly to Max's face. Max hears a bell ring and promptly leaves the training ground, stating that he'll be going somewhere. Inside the rabbit school main building, Max waits for the grandfather clock to go off. When the alarm rings, the small door at the top opens, and a wooden chicken springs out to cluck. He uses a sticky hand toy as a grapple, attempting to get the key hung on the tiny door. His first attempt fails, and the hand sticks to the wooden chicken instead. Mr. Fritz comes out to the hallway, looking for his glasses. Max hides, and the older rabbit doesn't see him. As soon as Mr. Fritz turns around, Max uses his toy again, and this time he successfully grabs the key. Outside, Madame Hermione is at the watchtower, looking through a telescope. She spots smoke coming out of Ruth's home. While looking through her telescope, she spots another fox and Max wandering in the forest. Max sneaks around the forest and spots Bruno and Ferdinand arguing. He tries to move past them without getting seen, but he gets caught in a trap. Bruno and Ferdinand see Max, and they talk about how to cook him. Suddenly, Madame Hermione appears behind the foxes and asks them for directions. When they approach her, she trips them and rescues Max while they're down. Lawrence arrives and tries to chase Madame Hermione, but she's too fast for him. Lawrence ends up getting snagged in a trap. She uses Disappearius and reappears behind Max. She grabs him, and they run back toward the rabbit school. The fox chases them, but they manage to get inside, and Mr. Fritz locks the gate behind them. After arriving back at the school, Mr. Fritz gives Max a stern scolding. Emmy also gets in trouble after she reveals that she told Max not to take the key. The other students all express their disappointment toward Max. Before heading back to the dorms, Max thanks Madame Hermione for rescuing him. Back in Max's room, he discovers that the emblem the gang leader gave him is missing. He looks all over the place but can't find it. After that, he contemplates another plan to get back to the city. As he looks at a poster on the wall, an idea hits him. Max goes to the training ground, and tells Madame Hermione that he wants to become an Easter Bunny. She tells him that it won't be that easy, given that students train for years. He tries to convince her by going through the obstacle course, but he quickly gets thrown off during the first part of it. Madame Hermione tells Max that the path to becoming an Easter Bunny starts from an inner journey. Max gets up and sees Emmy cleaning the training ground. He approaches her, asking for help. However, Emmy tells her to stop bothering her since he was the one who got her punished. She also tells him that he won't become an Easter rabbit anytime soon since he is selfish. While talking, Emmy and Max hear the sound of a loud chainsaw. The foxes are outside trying to cut down the hedge. The rabbits huddle together and wait for what happens next. Max tells everyone that they have to do something, but no one moves. Fortunately, the fox's chainsaw breaks down. Ruth scolds her sons, and they leave the hedge feeling dejected. Later that afternoon, the young rabbits blame Max for the fox's increased interest in breaking inside the school. Madame Hermione steps in, and explains that the Oracle of the Carrot predicted the foxes to become active. Mr. Fritz tells everyone to become more attentive. However, Max retorts that doing nothing wouldn't help their situation. Later that night, Emmy wakes Max up. She asks him to help her go outside so she can spy on what the foxes are doing. Outside the gates, Max insists on coming along, explaining that city rabbits survive by being together. The two arrive outside the fox's home, and they look through the window. Max opens the window slightly so they can hear what the foxes are saying. However, they fail to understand the conversation. The wind blows inside the house, causing the foxes to smell Emmy and Max. The two rabbits try their best to hide and are almost caught. Max realizes he has body spray with him and uses it to mask his and Emmy's scent. When the foxes get a whiff of the body spray, they are disgusted and decide to get back inside the house. As the foxes go back inside, Ruth mentions the golden egg, and the two rabbits hear her. Emmy and Max report their findings to everyone in the rabbit school. Mr. Fritz responds by ordering everyone to reinforce and cover the building that holds the egg. Mr. Fritz tries to scold Max and Emmy for leaving the school premises. However, Madame Hermione interrupts and asks Max to meet her for training later. Max meets up with Madame Hermione, and she asks him to construct a large stone egg as part of his training. Max complains at first, but he has no choice but to follow her orders. Back at the fox's home, Ferdinand and his brothers set out to execute a new plan. Their mother asks them to make sure that their plan works. At the watchtower, Mr. Fritz and Madame Hermione look at the telescope to see what the foxes are doing. They briefly talk about their preparations to hide the egg and whether Max would be able to actually help them. Max struggles to complete his task. He tries to create a giant rock egg by using sticks to support the structure. Madame Hermione knocks the structure down and asks Max to start over. This time she gives him a tip about finding the right rocks that would fit together to form a cohesive structure. Emmy also drops by to provide Max with some pointers. Max spends the entire afternoon and evening trying to piece together a rock egg. He ends up falling asleep without making much progress. When he wakes up, he goes to the area where the golden egg is, and asks if he can see it. Emmy takes him inside to see the golden egg. Emmy tells him about the importance of the golden eggs to the Easter rabbits. After that, Max becomes motivated to protect the egg. He goes back to his task and figures out how to create a rock egg faster than his previous attempt. Several days pass, and Max almost completes the rock egg structure. However, he struggles to put the final pieces at the top. Emmy comes along and teaches him how to jump high and place the finishing touches. Max eventually finishes his task. Madame Hermione arrives to see Max's work. She tries to touch the structure, but Max stops her from laying a finger on it. She is satisfied with his performance and brings him to the training ground. She announces that Max will be training with the other rabbits from that day onwards. Max tries to go through the obstacle course. He gets hit a couple of times but never gets thrown off. He manages to complete the course, despite getting knocked around. Max tries to perform the Disappearious, but he can't do it properly. Madame Hermione asks Anton to show Max how it's done. However, Anton also fails to use Disappearious. Emmy points out that Anton was having selfish thoughts, which made him fail to use the technique. The next day, Max demonstrates how to build an alarm system. He tells the rabbit to stretch a line around the hedge so that if any foxes trigger it, the alarm will go off. Everyone at the rabbit school spends the entire morning setting up the alarm system suggested by Max. During the preparations, Mr. Fritz tells Max that he is wrong and that Max might become a great Easter rabbit. Anton hears this and becomes jealous. He devises a plan to injure Max. Anton asks Max to get up on the ladder and tries to make him fall by tipping the ladder. His plan backfires when the ladder falls on him, and a pair of shears almost hits his face. Fortunately, Max manages to catch the shears. Anton apologizes and reflects on his actions. When Madame Hermione asks what happened, Max doesn't throw Anton under the bus. The following scenes show Max blending in with the other rabbits at the school. He finally joins them while bathing at the pond. He sings with them too. During class, he shows the other rabbits an alternative way of painting an egg by using a spray canister. That night, Max tries to have a conversation with Emmy, but the alarm goes off. The rabbits run out of the dorms and check out what is happening. Outside of the hedge, the foxes are discussing their failed attempt at using their catapult. On their next attempt, Ferdinand manages to successfully get inside. He immediately runs toward the place where the egg is located. Lawrence gets launched next, but the rabbits come prepared. They bounce him back out by using a bed to catch him. Bruno gets bounced out as well. Ferdinand gets stopped by Madame Hermione, so he runs amok and chases the rabbits instead. The rabbits outsmart Ferdinand and lure him into a trap. He gets bounced out of the premise and lands on the catapult, destroying it. The foxes argue and leave while the rabbits celebrate their victory. The next day, Madame Hermione discovers that the foxes decide to leave the forest. She also finds the emblem belonging to Max. The rabbits continue on with their day, and Max receives the emblem he lost. Later that night, Max heads out and tries to leave the school. He encounters Emmy, who discovers his plan and argues with him. Emmy cries, and Max gives her his shoes before leaving. Max returns to his home in the city and tries to get back to his normal daily routine. Meanwhile, Emmy informs Mr. Fritz and Madame Hermione about Max's departure. Max meets up with his friends at the park. When he talks to them, he finds out that his friends gave a rabbit suit to some strange foxes. Max immediately realizes that they are talking about the same foxes that attacked the school. He quickly runs back to the forest. Back at the entrance of the rabbit school, Ferdinand is disguised as a rabbit. He tells Mr. Fritz that he is Reinhardt and he'll be judging the Easter Bunny exam instead of the usual examiner. He is allowed in, and he sneakily leaves the gate unlocked so the other foxes can get in. Meanwhile, the real examiner Willibald is held hostage inside Ruth's home. Ferdinand tries his best to pretend to know what he's doing while his brothers sneak at the back to get the egg. Max arrives at Ruth's home and rescues Willibald. Together they head toward the rabbit school in a rush. Bruno and Lauren stumble into the chamber where the golden egg is. Then, Max and Willibald arrive at the training grounds and tell everyone about the fox in disguise. Ferdinand immediately runs away to reunite with Bruno and Lawrence, who are now carrying the golden egg with them. The three foxes attempt to leave the school. Madame Hermione uses Disappearance to successfully block the foxes and lock the gate before they can escape. The foxes then become agitated and attempt to attack any rabbit they see. The foxes are no match for the rabbits. They are always outmaneuvered and outsmarted. Bruno and Lawrence end up being incapacitated and thrown into the hedge. Ferdinand, on the other hand, ends up flattened after getting stuck in the obstacle course. While all this is happening, Willibald notes the rabbits' performance. The rabbits eventually retrieve the golden egg. However, the foxes manage to snatch one of the young rabbits, holding him hostage. They demand to exchange the egg for their hostage. Madame Hermione orders for the egg to be handed over, and Max volunteers to be the one to open the gate. The exchange is made, and the foxes attempt to leave. Suddenly, Max kicks a part of the wooden fence, startling the foxes and sending the egg flying. Ferdinand chases after the egg. Before the egg can land, Max breathes deeply and uses the Disappearance. He manages to teleport all the way to the egg's landing spot and catch it. The rabbits cheer Max for his spectacular performance. After that, the foxes admit defeat and retreat. The next day, Max participates in the ceremony of making himself and two other rabbits an official Easter Bunny. The examiner also grants Emmy the same title despite being too short for the role. Willibald believes her performance the previous day makes her deserving of the title. Everyone in the rabbit school celebrates and congratulates the new Easter Bunnies. The next scene happens during Easter Sunday. Multiple kids run around the city park collecting Easter eggs. One rabbit girl discovers a basket full of eggs. Max's friends try to bully the girl, but Max appears out of thin air to warn his friends. Emmy also appears in the same manner. Max tells his friends that if they want to become Easter Bunnies, just let him know so he can help them. After that, he and Emmy move along to continue their task of hiding Easter eggs in various other locations. Max's friends are left in shock, still processing what they saw.